What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. I am Ronan Gaine. Joining me as always, Chris Nambu. Whether you're a first-time listener or a regular, we thank you for making this podcast your listen for NBA coverage. Remember, if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, drop a like. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave that 5-star review. You do that and we'll keep producing that content. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Houston Rockets offense amidst a 4-0 run. We'll also be looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves hot start based off of elite defense. The 76ers 6-1 start to life without James Harden, and a little look at how the Clippers are doing now that James Harden is a part of their roster. Let's do it.
The mailman doesn't deliver on a Sunday.
If you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
Anthony for three. Bang! J.R. Smith! We just saw men fly. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Cleveland! This is for you!
And I think we just got to jump right into it. I want to jump right into a team that we talked a little bit about in the offseason, and we got to open up with the Rockets. They gave us a little bit of scare in the first couple of weeks of the season. You know, I think you said it first. It was after the first two games. Your question was, are the Rockets still going to be bad? And I thought it was a little bit early, but I want to open up with them and review. Again, it's early. So they're only 4-3, and there's still a lot more games to be played before we can determine what's real or not. But I want to hear your thoughts. We have had the chance to look at them again. They've had a couple great games, one against a De'Aaron Foxless Kings team, and more competitive games, one winning against the Hornets, one coming up a bit short against the Lakers, but they've looked pretty good. How are you feeling now after that spicy take the first week?
Yeah, I mean they've really looked good. They just won 4 straight games. Obviously, that's no easy feat, especially with a team where we thought they were going to be kind of in and out, especially after the start of the year. We were thinking it might take that little bit extra time for Ime Udoka to really get this team going. But now look at them. They're 11th in offense. They're 9th in defense. They ranked 27th and 29th in those categories last season. So there's an early tester of the impact of Ime Udoka. All 5 of their starters are scoring well. All 5 are averaging 14 points per game or better. Şengün is looking like the hub of the offense. They've got playmaking through him and Van Vliet. They've got shooting from the rest of their starters in Green and Brooks and Jabari Smith. And the flow of the team on both sides of the ball is really looking great over this run.
Yeah, the balance looks great. And I think it's really surprising that they are going to Şengün, because I think that was the one thing I was concerned about. I wasn't sure if they would start to go through him. To start off, with Van Vliet being there, with Jalen Green taking a step, with how we saw Ime Udoka operate the Celtics. But I think this one thing I do want to point out is, that opinion of mine, I think reflects very highly on Udoka, that he had a team in the Celtics that's very different from this team. And a great coach can coach any sort of team and will adapt to his kind of players. And to see Şengün really used as the hub, I mean, you just look at the advanced metrics for him. He's leading centers in usage to assist ratio. I mean, that's a very niche stat, but I mean, what that tells you is that he's right up there with Jokic in terms of, he's not going to have the ball all the time, but when you feed it through him, he's making great plays. He's really facilitating the offense. And to share that with a new playmaking partner and Van Vliet, I think it's really impressive that Udoka is already getting this team, and I mean, top 10 in defense. That I do have to ask, is that sustainable? Because we talked about some of the defensive talent on this team. They still don't even have Tari Eason really in the fold. They don't have Amen Thompson right now because of injuries, and those are 2 guys that we thought would be big defensive playmakers. But I mean, they still got a lot of guys here. They got Dylan Brooks. They got Jabari Smith Jr. The playmakers are there. Are they going to end the season though being a top 15 defense? Because even that's a win for me if they're a top 15 defense.
Yeah, I mean, like if they can, I think obviously, like you say, like that's where Udoka really kind of wants his teams to be really strong defensive sides, and then the offense will will come off of that. And I think the big thing, obviously, they got Van Vliet and Brooks. They were the two major additions this offseason. They're just two really rugged guys who play really hard on the defensive end, and they're two guys that can get more out of the likes of a Jalen Green or Jabari Smith and even Şengün. Like they're the two guys that they have that level, they have that desire to just be those hard-nosed guys on the defensive end. And I think the younger guys are taking a look at them and seeing that they have to step up. Whether that can sustain for the whole year, possibly not. But like you said, if they get a couple of those guys back and you can continue to get solid minutes out of some of the vets that they have on the team, some of the guys coming off the bench, it wouldn't be crazy. I'd be a little bit surprised, but the start that they've made, I don't think it'd be crazy to think that they could sustain a top 15 level, because that's what Ime Udoka can do. That's what a great coach can do. And that's what guys like Van Vliet and Brooks can deliver for a team.
Yeah. I think this might be, there's no most improved team award, but even just how they've looked here, that's a compliment to the GM, compliment to coaching and the players themselves. But the way the Rockets looked last year, I mean, at times just unwatchable. They had so much talent on the team, but really no organization of their offense. There wasn't really culture, but there already seems to be something brewing there. And it's cool to see. One guy that I wanted to mention, because we obviously are going to see the highlights from Green. We see how confident he's getting off the bounce. We're going to see all the playmaking from Şengün. But Jabari Smith Jr., I feel like he's starting to show some flashes, especially with the shooting, how quick that release is looking right now, how confident he's looking. Just immediately as he gets an open shot, he's shooting that, especially attacking closeouts. He's looking really good attacking closeouts. Some things that he showed us in Summer League, playing in the mid post, doing some of that here as well. I'm curious if this is kind of changing my opinion on his ceiling. It's early, just a second year, but you want to see early production, seeing what came out of their training over the summer. And I feel like he's really showing some things here.
Yeah, and I mean, I almost like the fact that he's not going too crazy. I like it. It feels like he's at a level that's not only sustainable, but also that can be improved on, even just in this year. Like he's shooting 40% from three. He's averaging 13.9 points per game. Like if he can stay around that mark, he can bump that up to get closer to 20 points per game, and he's still shooting maybe 37.5 plus from three. That's a great look. That's a great improvement. And that's him showing really why the Rockets picked him up last year. Like that sort of level is pretty ideal, I think, for a second year player like Jabari Smith, who struggled for large periods in his rookie year. The big thing I would look at is like when it all kind of fleshes out for the Rockets, where are they at? Because at the moment they're kind of obviously having a bit of luck. Like Brooks is shooting 54% from three. Jalen Green shooting 46% from three. Even Smith shooting 40% from three. Like that's not going to continue for the entire year. No. And when those guys go into those sort of slumps, we all know Dylan Brooks can very quickly go from being great on the as a shooter to being absolutely awful. Green has struggled with his 3-point shot throughout his years in the league, and it's just where they're going to be when those slumps naturally come, when that level sort of drops off. That'll be a true test of how much this team has grown then, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's why I brought up being like did they just vault themselves from being actually like one of the worst, if not the worst team in basketball, to now an average team, a very functional team, a hopeful team, that they don't have to be top 10. They're not going to say top 10. And those numbers, like you said, they're not going to last. But what I do like is the looks. The looks they're getting from three. They're developing open looks. Jalen Green has a lot more catch and shoot opportunities. The way that he's working with Şengün, it's interesting when you watched how Şengün and Green were playing against the Kings. Reminded you a lot of how De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, how they run their offense. There's a lot of synergy there with how they get each other downhill, how Şengün can operate in the short roll, facilitating from that point. And there's just a lot of offense that makes sense here, even though the numbers are a little bit inflated. I don't think too much of it is fluky. And I think you're going to get a lot more. You're going to get a lot more defensive help once this team is fully healthy. So I don't expect their defense to fall off too much. And shooting luck, that's all going to balance out. All in all, to close on the Rockets, they're impressing me, even though it's in 7 games. And I think that there is something here. They've got something there.
Yeah, I think obviously, like we were saying from the start, like when they were able to appoint Udoka, like that was a really huge pickup for them. And the couple of guys that they got in are those hard nosed guys that can have that positive impact on a defense and on a young core. Those the type of guys that they brought in. So I think they made the right moves, and it's working really great for them early doors. I'll be interested to have a look at them maybe in another month or two. That's going to be an interesting kind of marker for them. But the way that they're playing and like the synergy, like you were saying, between like the likes of Green and Şengün, and those things make you really believe that it won't be crazy to think of them as being a playing team. Like they're not going to be there battling around the 14, 13 seed. They're going to be battling up closer to the 8, 9 seed, which is something that, especially after the first couple of games of the season, we weren't thinking.
Yeah, I mean the Jazz look terrible. The Grizzlies, obviously, we talked about how bad they look. The Blazers, I mean Spurs. There's still a lot of non-Wemby minutes to fix there. So the Rockets, they've added that veteran talent to buoy them and to really stabilize them. I don't think they're better. I don't think they're the 6th seed. I don't think they're 7 or 8. I think if they're fighting for 10th, that was the ceiling that we talked about in the summer. So good to see them have a good start. I think we need to jump to a game and a team that, man, what was the Timberwolves and Celtics? That was the best game so far this season, right?
I think so, yeah.
The drama between the two, the foul trouble that Anthony Edwards had to fight through, Cat having a bad game, Timberwolves having early struggles offensively, and then Tatum going off on runs. And you really saw on full display at times the best offense in the league in the Boston Celtics and the best defense in the league right now, which is insane to say. All the potential was there last year, didn't see it come to fruition. And this year they're really making a statement. Rudy Gobert is back. The Timberwolves know how to play defense. They're playing the best defense in the Timberwolves' entire franchise history. And that game really culminated in the end with Anthony Edwards getting his first win over Jaylen Brown, fellow Georgia buddy, and making a statement to those who don't know him, like he's coming and he's going to be in the conversation for MVP, if not this year, at some point. The chance, I will say, the chance in Minnesota got to get a little louder for him for MVP. He deserves that, especially just when he's putting on performances like that. But overall, man, that was amazing to see from Ant.
Yeah, no, he was unbelievable. And even the big thing was, after he got into that foul trouble down the stretch of the game, he was going one-on-one defensively with Jason Tatum, and he wasn't fouling. He was playing great defense on Jason Tatum, and then he was ultimately took off and closed it out for them then in overtime. That was a real eye-opening performance. And like with Anthony Edwards, when the lights shine brightest, that's when he really shows up. Mm-hmm. And it was that feeling of, I want this, like, give me that ball, give me the toughest defensive assignment. It was that element of him really bursting in and being like, this is my time. Like, I'm ready for this moment. And he really delivered. And the defense has been as impressive as the offense with him to start this year, which has been really great, I think, for me watching the Timberwolves. And obviously number 1 ranked defense. They're getting really great defensive push from even the likes of like Nickeil Alexander-Walker coming off the bench, Shake Milton, and they're providing really solid defensive minutes when they're playing at the bench unit. And Gobert looks right back to being one of the best, if not the best, defender in the league, the way that they're playing at the moment. And that's really huge for this Minnesota team. I mean, what are they, 4-0 at home, I think it is, and 2 wins over the technically what we all think the 2 best teams in the NBA. Only team to beat Denver, that Minnesota team. Like there is something there, and I think it's gonna be a really big year for this Minnesota team. And I liking the vibes early, and I think it's gonna continue.
Yeah, and just to stay on Ant for a quick sec, like games like this really make you want them to make the playoffs. You want to see Anthony Edwards in the playoffs. You want to see him in those moments, and you want to see him do this more consistently too. And I think you're seeing that so much more often this year, last year. Like he's really trending up in his consistency. There are times where he'd go a full game of trying to shoot the ball too much, and then you saw him flip the switch when he missed a few jumpers in a row, and he's like, you know what, I'm enough of this. I'm getting to the rim against the Celtics, Boston Celtics, who I think, you know, are still right there, best defense in basketball. And Anthony Edwards is too good. He's too strong, he's too fast, he's got a good, like, he's too good to be contained. And he did that against the Celtics. He just decided to get to the rim. He decided to get to his spots. And when he does that, when he can just channel that, it's unbelievable. And if you had Anthony Edwards defense with 5 fouls, like if he gave that all the time, like that's I mean, that's MVP right there. I mean, he looks like one of the best players in the league when he turns it on like that, and you want to see that in the playoffs. You want to see that consistently. Man, the defense
22,
too.
only 22. He's still only 22.
He's only 22. Once he figures
just,
it out, man.
It's just the craziest thing ever. And one thing I will say on him is, I saw a video the other day. Austin Rivers was talking about how there isn't really a face of the league to take over when LeBron goes. And I think that Anthony Edwards fits that mold in terms of what he can do talent-wise, what he can do in terms of just being that mercurial figure, that guy who just delivers, who has that magic touch. And in terms of personality as well, I think his personality has really come across his entire time in the league. I think he's a really likable guy. I think he's a really favorite of the media. And I think if he can continue on this stretch and really sustain his level atop the NBA, that Anthony Edwards is a guy, I think, more so than anyone else, that really fits the mold as being the face of the NBA in the future.
Yeah. I'll give it to Doncic. I'll give it to Giannis. I'll give it to Jokic.
Jokic, no.
Jokic, no. He doesn't want it.
Jokic doesn't want it. Jokic has no interest in it. Yeah. You got to want it as well.
He'd rather be the face of he'd rather be the face of horse racing.
Exactly. You have to want it too. That's why Jokic doesn't quite fit in.
Yeah. Here's a big question. So we're talking about sustainability with the Rockets. I want to talk about sustainability with the Wolves and them being the best defense in the league, leading the NBA in defensive rating, second in the league in opponents' field goal percentage at the rim, and they are right there amongst the best in the league in opponents' field goal percentage on contested jumpers. I mean, you just see it when you watch game in, game out. They're contesting everything. Is this real? Are the Timberwolves a top 5-ish defense in the league? Is this something that you can see persisting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that obviously you can't fully say yes because you're looking at a guy like Anthony Edwards and he's obviously delivering in the short term, and that's, we have to see that more consistently. But yeah. Jaden McDaniels, you know, you're going to get out of him. Rudy Gobert looks right back to his best. Mike Conley is always a solid defensive piece. Like I was saying, Alexander Walker, Shea Milton, guys coming in off the bench are doing a great job for them. And those elements are definitely sustainable. And I don't see why, with Gobert playing like a defensive player of the year, I don't see why they can't sustain that level of a top 5 defense. I think that's clearly what Chris Finch has taken a look at the roster, taking a look at the fit and going, defense is where we're going to thrive, and we're going to rely on the likes of Edwards, the likes of even McDaniels being able to step up in big moments, maybe Karl Anthony Towns too, but those guys to really deliver in the clutch moments and say, we keep the opponents to low field goal percentage, low scoring nights, and we'll be able to come out with the win.
I really think you're right in terms of, you name the guys, and when you think about too what they looked like last year, a lot of the same names are there, but there just seems to be more of a chemistry. Like they seem to be much more cohesive when they're facing, you know, a tough switch. It's there. It's a lot cleaner. When they're making that rotation, it's there a lot faster. And the perimeter defense looks so much better. And Gobert doesn't seem to be, you know, he seems to be in a good place where he's confident about letting guys go one-on-one. He's confident about someone not getting blown by. He's in the right place. He's not overextending himself. And Gobert is having like a resurgent season. And you look at the perimeter, like McDaniels, Anderson, the way that those guys can switch, even what you saw out of Nickeil Alexander-Walker too. Whenever he's on the floor, at times, because he's people don't recognize how long he is as a guard. Like sometimes you're like, is that Jaden McDaniels? Oh no, that's Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's a guard who looks like a wing, and the way that he really gets up people's grills, the way that he contests. That's why, you know, they're the best defense in basketball right now, and you know, they're going to be top 5. I don't think that's going anywhere with Gobert there. And if Cat's not messing it up now, will eventually foul himself out to not make it an issue later. And I'm really curious about that. I'm watching that like a hawk because I just don't see the reason for him to stay there. Naz Reid looks so good out there when he's on the floor with them. The way that not even Naz Reid playing defense. Naz Reid playing defense on Jason Tatum. Like the Timberwolves feel okay with him in a switch. When Cat switches up on Tatum, or really any ball handler on the perimeter, you see everyone's having a swivel. When Naz Reid's up there, like Timberwolves feel confident. They're not really looking to help too much. So I even think that Naz would be a better fit for this lineup than Cat. He just makes a little bit more sense. But I digress.
We
They
with
look good.
Obviously Cat was awful that game against the Celtics. Ultimately fell out, only had like 7 points, didn't score in the first half, and then obviously had a bit of a bounce back game in the win over the Pelicans. But I think the failings of Karl Anthony Towns are a lot more so than the positives that he brings to the team. And I think the only reason they must be keeping on to him is they're really just waiting for that right trade, because I think one thing I will say is if they are going to get rid of him, they're going to have to bring in someone that can score a solid 15, 16 a game and shoot the three consistently. Like they do need to bring in a shooter if they are going to let him go. I think like someone like a Buddy Hield type of player, I think is someone that they need to get in return if they're going to be losing Cat. But just the fit out there, and sometimes you watch it and you're just thinking, will him not being here really make that huge of a difference, especially in some of the big games when Ant is really locked in and the way the team is playing at the moment. I know it's happening with Karl Anthony Towns, so it's tough to say they need to break it up or anything, but I think on the whole, I think as Ant continues to grow, I think they'll realize more and more that Cat probably has to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Now do we jump over to Harden? It's been a minute since we talked about Harden.
Yeah, long. I mean,
I've been happy not talking about Harden, but the trade finally happened, and we finally have a couple games to talk about. How do we feel about the 76ers right now without him? That was a big concern I feel like I had over the offseason. I was not sure if they'd really be able to have a coherent offense without a true orchestrator like Harden. Not sure how, they were going to even figure things out with just one true playmaker. And Maxi's not even a true playmaker. But do they look good?
He's looking like it at the moment.
Yeah, he looks good.
And so is Embiid. I mean, I was going to say straight out the bat, like I promised myself after last year, I was never going to believe in the 76ers for a second until they actually showed it to me. They're really testing my faith there at the moment. They're really trying to get me.
Lock it in,
Ronan. They're trying to get me to jump on the bandwagon. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do it. No, I'm not jumping in on them. But they look great. The 6-1 start. All these games have been without James Harden. And like Embiid said the other night, there's no egos on this team anymore. This is just a bunch of guys that are all playing for the same coach, all playing for the same goal out there. And like I said last week when we were talking about the trade, at the very minimum, they've got a great head coach who will get the best out of the players at his disposal. Let's not forget, like Nick Nurse led a Toronto Raptors team to 50 wins after they lost Kawhi Leonard for nothing. Like that was no lean feat, and I think he's gonna do great things with this 76ers team. And like I sent you that quote earlier, Embiid talked about how he's always hurt when it gets to the playoffs. Embiid being healthy in the playoffs is the big thing. During the regular season, they are going to be absolutely fine. And Embiid and Maxey together at the moment, they're looking like the birth of a new star duo. Let's be honest. Let's not forget, as much as great as Harden was for Philly, he wasn't pushing that needle for them to get to the next level that they want to get to, which is Eastern Conference Finals and beyond. So why was it always going to have that massive impact when he was to leave? Don't get me wrong, they're going to have iffy moments throughout this season when we're going to look at it and think, oh man, they kind of need James Harden. Maxey will probably flail off in it over a couple of weeks spell or something like that. I think, oh, they need to make that trade now. But I still think they need to wait, because I still think they're going to get a lot out of these two guys. And what we saw against the Celtics was great. They combined 52 points, 19 rebounds, 9 assists, and 6 blocks between the two of them. They really are looking like a real tandem, and what they're going to get from the guys outside of them, I really like the flow and the fit of this Philly team.
Yeah, I'm impressed with. I mean, Maxey averaging 7 assists, averaging
And
1 turnover.
yeah, that was the big thing.
Yeah, 7-1. That I wasn't sure where, because that's a big ask for him. Being a secondary playmaker for him, he really blossomed last year. He didn't always have to have the ball in his hands and make the right decision. He could just be aggressive. He could just play, but he's really accepting a role as a playmaker, and he's still using his ability to get downhill. He still is comfortable in the system, and I think that's a great testament to Nick Nurse and getting him a lot of down screens and getting him a lot of high screener rolls and really allowing him to use his speed to play make and set that up. And I don't see why this is going to go away for him. I think 25 and 7. It's early goings here, but
Still shooting 40% from three too.
Yeah, those numbers alone, like that puts him in the next level as a playmaker in this league. And I just was worried about how he would adapt to that, and where else they're going to get it. And I will say, they do need something else. Like you can't rely on just Maxey and Embiid are not enough firepower for you to just lock it in here. But I will say at a minimum, it's good to see that Embiid is still at a MVP level, and Maxey's taking the next step. And defensively, they still look good. Nick Nurse still has him playing Nick Nurse has him playing good offense. The ball movement's there. The perimeter attack is there.
They're third in offense, fifth in defense at the moment, and I think they're definitely going to be able to sustain top 10 in both those categories moving forward. And I think it'll depend on how big of a slide they might take in certain situations. If Embiid goes down for a little bit, if Maxey starts to struggle for a few games, what might happen in that situation, we'll have to just wait and see. But I think in terms of being top 10 both and even top 5, I think they could challenge for top 5 on both ends of the floor, and that moving forward is going to be big. And I think they're going to be a really good regular season team again. It's just going to all come down to when we get to those playoffs, whether or not Joel Embiid is healthy and whether or not Maxey can really step up. I mean, last year he was basically the same player in the playoffs as he was in the postseason. If he can do that again and Embiid is healthy, why not? Why can't they go and take the next step, or at least go toe to toe with a Celtics or a Bucks? Maybe not win, but if they have to face one of the two of them in the semifinals, then okay, maybe it's fair enough they lose for once. But
well, the answer is because your third best player is Tobias Harris.
Tobias Harris is playing for that contract, bro.
Yeah, I mean, 19 points a game, a lot better than last year. Shooting 70% on the floor. 70%.
It's all about Springer, that guy. Springer, the rookie. He provides nice energy though. That's the first time I've seen a nothing rookie in Philly actually looking like he could provide something for the team, which is good to see. Very small note.
Yeah. How do we think about the Clippers? 2 games in New York, both losses, one notably against a 24th ranked defense in the Nets, where they scored 93 points. Their offensive rating has dropped from 118 to 110 with Harden. It's 2 games. Guys got to get to know each other, especially with 4 stars. All this talk about there's only one ball, 4 stars. What's your early take? Harden
and Russ can't play together. Simple. Like, that's just the instant look when you see it. Like, it's not going to work with the two of them starting. Like, that's just not. It's not feasible. I mean, against the Knicks, I think Harden scored all his points when Russ was on the bench. I think that was pretty eye opening. And then again against the Nets, it just doesn't look the fit, the feel, the spacing you want when Harden is out there. Russ just cannot provide it, and I think they're going to have to make that switch there eventually. Whether they keep on going with it for the next while or they just bite the bullet early and move things. But it's going to be difficult because since Russ has come in, he's been so good. So it's going to take a lot for him mentally to accept that has to take the back seat again. And still continue to deliver. So it's a tough area for Coach Lou and for the team as a whole. But I think it looks like it's early days. That's all you can really say. It looks like they're going to take some time, but I think it's pretty clear watching those 2 games that the Russ and Harden as a backcourt just doesn't work.
Would you rather have Harden run the bench unit or Russ run the bench unit?
Russ. I think you want to see Harden playing the pick and roll with Zubac. You want to see him out there with those starters more so than Russ, and I think they can kind of play in a different way with Russ as part of the second unit, and they can play a lot quicker and allow him to get downhill more.
That's true. I guess I wonder that because, in the minutes that I watched with Harden, I don't hate the spacing that they're creating. When it just depends who gets the ball coming out. If Paul George gets the ball, they're throwing in a pick and roll. Kawhi gets the ball, pick and roll. It's like pick and roll, space out, and work from there. Work out the advantage. And they got some solid looks there, but there wasn't a whole lot of movement off of that. And if Kawhi Leonard is reduced to spacing the floor for you when you have James Harden on the floor, I don't mind it with Paul George because Paul George is such an elite shooter. I mean, he's not producing right now, but down the stretch, I've confidence the shot will fall. It's just such a dynamic shooter. So, but with Kawhi, I don't love that becomes his role when Harden's on the floor, because Harden is supposed to be your primary playmaker when he's on the floor. He's supposed to be running those pick and rolls. So, are you getting the best out of Kawhi if that's the situation? And I'm not. And that kind of determines, who's starting, who's playing with Kawhi is the real question. Is who helps Kawhi be the best? Will Paul George be the best? Is that Russ or is that Harden?
Yeah, I guess that's a fair point. So I guess you didn't actually want to say it, but you're more inclined.
I think Russ. The issue of spacing is going to exist with any lineup you put out there, and I think he's done a better job. Screening. He has screened for this team. He's run screening actions. He's dived to the rim. He's been a cutter. He's worked on being aggressive shooting from the corners. He's not taking too many crazy shots like he used to. And, the amount of hustle that he brings is going to be there no matter what. But I think that he's accepted a little bit more of a role next to Kawhi and next to Paul George compared to Harden. And I think Harden just eats up so much more usage just in terms of how you need to use him in that way. So, I guess I would rather see Harden. Harden cooking second units, that becomes something where that's deadly. But Harden's never going to accept that.
Yeah, then Ty Lue and the Clippers will be liars, and he'll want out of there in a few minutes.
Yeah, I know. Here's the fuck. What would be the next logical team for Harden to demand to go to? What would be the next logical team for him to demand to go to?
Miami, maybe.
Miami.
Miami. I think Miami's next on the card for him. Yeah, I think so.
Oh my god.
But that's the thing. Like they will get James Harden will not want to play as part of the bench, and you'll see that in his attitude, and then he'll quickly become that poison, because that's what James Harden is. Like, as much as he can be such a big positive for any team because he has that talent, he can so quickly become that poison because he clearly has a ginormous ego and really thinks a lot of himself. And if things aren't going the way he wants them to go, it's gonna affect the team morale as a whole. So that's why I think it's just more realistic to see Russ dropping to the bench. But I think they'll give it another couple of weeks before they probably make any sort of move.
Yeah, and I'll leave you with this stat. The new starting lineup that they have here. Again, it's 2 games. This number isn't going to stay, but they're -22 net rating, and their defense isn't bad. 107.8 helps when you're playing the Nets. Their offensive rating, 85. That just reflects, that what kind of your turn, my turn was going on, and the inefficient offense that they're getting. But I think we'll watch this. We'll see where it goes, and I'm not confident in this moving forward. Just given the kind of offense that they're creating with all 5 of them on the floor, like there wasn't really anything there. But there's always way. I believe in Tyronn Lue, though. I believe in Ty Lue. He's a great coach. Yeah. He's shown us that he's willing to mix things up. He's willing to mix lineups up. And if James Harden is here to truly win, maybe this is the place where he figures it out. He's not the guy. He's not the second guy. He's not the third guy. He's like the third B guy, because Russ is earned his place in that locker room. He's just a guy. He's just a guy right now. And in LA, it's going to be a very the Battle of LA is not going to be the glamorous one that we envisioned when Kawhi first showed up to Los Angeles. But I'm definitely interested to see where it goes. But that's all I have. That's all I'd say about Harden. And we'll give him a rest for a few
we'll
weeks.
give it a break for a little while and see how we'll give him a little bit of time. We'll give the Clippers a little bit of time to figure it out. But let's go around the league then. Any big points? We might as well start off with our weekly Wemby check-in. I mean,
you tell me.
So far he's really looking like more of a normal rookie than the next to them one. That's a fact. That's literally a fact. And the other night, the Knicks put big bodies on him, and they made him look human. His shot was off. Everything, the flow was off with him. When Mitchell Robinson was his primary defender, he went 0 for 6. He got the Hartenstein and Robinson played him hard, and he didn't really like it. Obviously, that's the way it is with rookies. You take this, you learn from it, and we'll see it maybe even the next time he plays them, and he'll be more prepared for it. But yeah, obviously a tough couple of games he's had over the last while. But I think nice learning curve for him. Maybe it's a good thing for the Spurs to not instantly just see him looking unstoppable. Maybe it's a good thing that he's having to take these moments to learn and grow, especially early days in the season.
I just have to say that is a irresponsible take to make. That is irresponsible, and I do not endorse saying anything regular, normal, average, anything like that about Victor Wembanyama. And he's gonna have to. I mean, the Knicks are a physical basketball team. That's true, and I don't think that anybody who watched Wemby, any tape on him before coming to the league, had any confidence that he was going to deal with this well. I think that was going to be his one weakness, is when he's going to deal with physical teams that are going to challenge him and really, push the envelope of, all right, can you really like bang down in the post? Can you really deal with the physicality? Can you deal with that's going to be where he struggles. And as a rookie, dude, who else is getting attention like this? Nobody. Like he's getting LeBron treatment at times, and no normal rookie is getting the attention that Wembanyama is getting, and it's good for him because he's got to learn early on how to deal with that sort of pressure. But I mean, normal. Don't talk about normal.
Okay, we'll mention normal. I'll never say normal again.
2.5 blocks a game. Okay. Kidding me? The stuff we've seen.
What's he averaging? Like 16 points per game? That's pretty normal.
18.8. 19 points per game. I think that games there.
Like you take out that big night he had against Phoenix.
That's not how averages work. You can't take
out his but if you take that out, he's looked extremely normal. He's looked extremely normal. I'm not saying he is normal. I'm not saying he's going to be normal moving forward, but so far he's been pretty normal.
I think people like LeBron rookie year, right? I think there's different ways to look at it too. I think what the biggest value that I see from Wemby is what he does on the defensive end. That's where he's game changing for me. And is when teams don't.
The worst defense in the league. Get in, Wemby.
But like, I mean, just like there's nothing normal about a professional basketball team having a stretch of not wanting to go to the rim because he is on the floor. That's not normal. There's nothing normal about a 7'5" guy crossing up guards and pulling up from mid range. There's nothing normal about that. There's nothing normal about Wembanyama.
Okay. No normal. Not normal anyway. Okay, well, I'll let you have that. And
one win against the Spurs, and you're going easy here.
Let's go, Knicks. You. Number 2 defense in the league, by the way. They've flipped the switch again. They've gone away from being a good offensive team. They're back to trying to be a good defensive team again this year.
Yeah. When are you going to be back on Randall's side? I don't know. Maybe not.
Maybe never. I've never been completely over on this side ever, have I?
Sure.
He's coming back. He's had a nice couple of games. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come anyway.
We're going around the league. Got to give a quick update on your Nuggets. They are a staggering offense. You know what their net rating is right now? The starting lineup. You can guess what their starting lineup's net rating is.
Net rating, I don't know, like plus 13 or something.
That's cute. 45.
Was 45. Nice.
Plus 45. Their offensive rating right now is 128. Defensive rating 83. The starting lineup for the Nuggets just looks unbelievable, insane. Nothing else to report. They're as good as it.
And Jamal Murray out for a month, and it doesn't matter at all. Although I will say that, like that night, that game against the Warriors the other night, again, that was another one of those moments there that maybe they should have lost. You saw Steph mess up that layup that would have leveled the scores after Jokic went 0 for 2 on a couple of free throws that could have locked the game. The Warriors kind of bottled it. But I tweeted this out. There was two different occasions in the fourth quarter that Warriors players like made a dive for the ball on the end line to try and save it, gave it back to the Nuggets. And on both occasions, I'm almost positive that it would have been Warriors ball. Like it very clearly hit a Nuggets player, was going out. And the guys made these weird dives. I was like, what the hell are they doing here? They've just given up possession. This is so stupid. And
listen, it's hustle points. It's hustle points.
And they ultimately lost by a few points. It was definitely a weird one. But yeah, the Warriors, they kind of had to take their medicine of that game, because you look at it and thinking no player had scored 20 points other than Steph for them all year. And when you're going up against a Nuggets team, you need all of your best guys to step up, and you need Wiggins to be hitting shots. You need Clay to be stepping up, and it can't just be all Curry. And you saw again, if your team cannot dominate the minutes that Jokic is not on the floor, you literally have no hope of beating the Nuggets.
Yeah. One quick shout out. Peyton Watson.
Mm-hmm.
For the Denver Nuggets. I told you they'd find a rookie, man. We didn't know who it was, and we were looking at the other guys. We didn't even really think about Peyton Watson. Dude, this guy is an NBA player. Straight up NBA player. Like he is so good defensively, and I mean the way he gets to the rim too. Like he has the strength of an NBA. He's not a rookie. This is a grown man, and I told you, they're going to find a rookie. They're going to find some guys going to replace Bruce Brown's spot. The defense he brings on the perimeter easily replaces Bruce Brown's. The way he's getting to the rim, maybe not quite to Bruce Brown's level, but I mean, just getting an energy wing like that. Got to give a quick shout out. Like the Nuggets, the good organizations out, the championship organizations out there know how to find the guys to fill in the gaps like that. And shout out Peyton Watson. That guy's a dog. They got a good one.
Yeah, those damn Nuggets. And what about the Celtics? We were obviously talking about them last week, how dominant they've been. You jinxed them, talking about how they might totally beat the Warriors. The Warriors 29-0 start to the season. They've lost back-to-back games. They've started to look a bit more human. Be interesting to see where they go from here. They've got a game against the Nets tonight, which you think is a nice game for them, where they should think they can get back to winning ways, get back to playing basketball that was having them look so dominant to start the year. But it's there's been a few interesting ones. Pacers as well. Every time I watch them, it's just they go on big runs themselves, and then they go on awful runs, and teams bring them back. Like they were up by 18 against the Bucks last night. Then in the first quarter, then they got pegged back, and luckily they were able to pull it out in the clutch. But they are an unbelievable offensive team, but an absolutely awful defensive team. And if they suffer any sort of injuries to, like, if Halliburton gets injured, like, they are going to struggle so much again. So yeah, they really need to stay healthy to be able to stick with my hot take and get a push on for the playoffs this year.
Yeah, first in offense. And
they have to be, because their defense is negative. Their defense is nothing.
Ben Mathurin had a great game.
Back-to-back 20-point games. I'm hoping that's the start of things for him. He looked a lot better the last couple of games.
Yeah, confidence is never an issue for him. But, getting all the way to the rim has never been a problem for him. But doing it consistently, it'll be
defense last night was big as well. He had a few really big defensive plays down the stretch. If that's something that they can start to rely on, just even a small bit as the season progresses, that'd be a really huge plus for Mathurin and the Pacers. But yeah, defense is a major Achilles heel for them once again. You got anything else to mention before I play a little game with you to finish off?
Yeah, we got to stay with that game. Pacers and the Bucks.
We got to do our Bucks check-in. We'll take a check-in on the Bucks. Let's go.
Giannis has an amazing game, right? 54 points. And
76% from the field.
Any game where Giannis is scoring 40 or more points, like that's a win. because their defense is always there. But we got to do a check-in because the Bucks defense continues to slide. They're giving up 69% at the rim. That's like Mavericks, Kings, Nets territory. Last year, they were second best in the league. They're second to last in opponents' fast break points per game. And they're giving up 130 points to who? The Raptors the other day. I'm really concerned for where their defense is at. And if you look at the shot side of opposing teams, they're still holding teams to a lower number of shots at the rim, a lower number of open threes, and maybe the shot luck, that their opposing offenses are shooting around 4% higher than league average on three. So maybe it's just luck. Maybe it's just luck. But you look, and there are just so many more easy lanes to the rim. I gave Beasley some great credit for being a lot more focused on defense. That's not really lasted. And they just don't have any help on the wing. Like Jay Crowder's not enough. Where are they going to get? Is Marjon Beauchamp all of a sudden going to become a defensive stalwart? And that's what we've been asking since the offseason. Where is that defense going to come from on the perimeter? And it's going to continue to be a problem.
Yeah, you see it both ends. You see the way in both big teams in the East. I think early days, obviously the Celtics have looked great, but then we also start to question their depth and how big of a worry that's going to be as the season moves forward. And if there was an injury to that team, and then on the Bucks side of it, the defense just looks awful, and Brook Lopez looks back to being like Brooklyn Nets Brook Lopez as in terms of the defensive.
He had 7 blocks the other day.
Yeah, against the Knicks, he looked awesome. He had like every block that he's had all season was against in that Knicks game. But outside of that,
about half of them, yeah,
it really hasn't been good from him. And last night, especially, I think he really struggled, especially against a team like the Pacers, but that kind of thrive in the playing fast and shooting threes, like to give up that sort of level in terms of the paint scoring. Like Mathurin had a lot of looks he got at the rim and was able to score, which shouldn't really shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, it becomes a lot harder. And look at what happened to Gobert last year. Gobert is like looked at as a failure. It's all his fault. Why is the defense not good? Because he's there. Well, this is a little microcosm to use him as an example. Jaylen Brown dunks over Gobert. And why does he get that dunk? It's because the weak side defense was not in place. The rotation was not in place. And Gobert had to get there late. He got dunked on. And that was something we saw all the time last year. So Gobert not really being in place, not being able to defend correctly. And the same thing is going to happen to Brook Lopez this year. The guy who was one of the best defenders in the league last year is going to take a step back because there's no semblance of good perimeter defense at times. When Pat Connaughton sometimes is your best perimeter defender, depending on the lineup. And offensively too, this is where I'm waiting for things to pick up, because on the defensive end, I fully expect this to be a blip. I think that you can't have Giannis and Brook Lopez out there and even just average wing defenders for them to not figure something out. Like that they will have to figure it out, and I'm really interested to see what their answer is for the Bucks. And the shooting luck that'll come down.
They'd have won that game last night if Dame was playing too.
Yeah, but Dame with their offensive rating for the two main lineups is Lillard and Giannis is respectively 100 and 102. Well, I don't know what to make of that number. I mean, it's early goings. Again, like these are all small sample sizes, but the offense isn't humming like you'd expect it to. And that is also something that you'd want to hopefully see be a lot better than that. You'd expect them to be spamming pick and roll. They're not running a whole lot of pick and roll. You'd expect them to be getting, Lillard a lot better looks from three. It still feels like he's taking a lot of challenging shots and not a whole lot of open looks. So I don't know if the Dame time offense is really the best, look for them when they have Giannis, when they can play through Giannis and Dame feeds off of that. But there's so many. I think this is the great part about looking deep into, what are the deficiencies of some of these teams early on, because we know these great teams are going to figure it out. This isn't a set in stone observation on these great teams, because with great players like this and great systems, like they will figure something out. But right now, it doesn't seem like the best doesn't seem like the best formula for two guys that are, top 10 players in this league. And 100 offensive rating, 102 offensive, that should not be any lower than, that's like worse than the league. That's one of the worst starting fives offensively. And that doesn't make any sense. That I don't know how to even process that when I looked it up.
Yeah, no, coach, figure it out. Players got to figure it out. There's that element. Yeah, there's that element that for the Bucks, they obviously they have time. The most important thing for them is that they're really firing once they get to the playoffs, which is I'm sure they're probably thinking amongst themselves. But I think there's a lot to still figure it out with that Bucks team. I think we thought it would be better to start the year, but obviously plenty of time to get it right. Before we finish off, I'm going to play a little bit of real or fake with you. I'm going to list off a few stats. You let me know if you think they're fake or they're real and they could be sustainable moving forward this season, okay?
All right, let's do it.
All right, I'll start you off with an easy one. Minnesota being the number 1 ranked defense, real or fake?
Real. Rudy Gobert is back, baby.
Yeah. Mitchell Robinson averaging more offensive boards than defensive boards.
Real. Knicks don't have good shooters. There's going to be a ton of offensive rebounds available.
Cam Thomas averaging 27 points per game.
Dude, I've been waiting for. I can't believe I'm praying on the downfall of Cam Thomas, but I can't believe it's there. Fake. There's just no way. I know he's gonna prove me wrong. I know he's out for a couple of 30 a game.
He's out for a couple of weeks now, so we'll see what he's like now when he comes back. The Lakers 0-5 road record.
Fake. I think the Lakers are a lot better than this. I still really believe in their depth, and they're so good with slow starts. I'm gonna say fake. Anthony Davis will get healthy. They'll start to figure this out. Cam Reddish will hopefully shoot more than 20% from three. I might have to sell my Cam Reddish stock when that's what it all comes down to.
Cam Reddish, I think when I looked it up, he was like 2 of 13 for the season from three. Like he's got to be at a level where he's making like 5 of every 13 shots at least, which is like 38%. He's got to be around that sort of mark. He's only taking open looks in the corner. Like he has got to be able to hit those shots. Like they're so open, and he still can't hit it. Like, do we thought the Lakers could figure it out their spacing? They really haven't at all. They got Taurean Prince and D'Lo whenever he kind of feels like it, which is not too often. Okay, last one then. The San Antonio Spurs with the 30th ranked defense.
Fake, super fake.
Super fake. So you got your superhuman Wembanyama going to change it
with no, well, not just him. With Sohan, who is such a good defender, with Wemby out there, and their wings. They're still young and they're still figuring things out. And I think Collins is not a bad defender. They've got the talent on this roster to not be the 30th defense. They're better than a lot of teams ahead of them, and this is just early goings trying to get used to having Wemby on their roster. That's fake.
Fair enough. I'll let you agree with that. So what we've summarized from today's episodes, it's all about sustaining when we look at Minnesota, when we look at Philadelphia, then it's all about figuring it out when we look at the Bucks, when we look at the Clippers. And we are not allowed to say that Victor Wembanyama is normal. We will never use Victor Wembanyama normal in the same sentence again on this podcast. I'll promise that. I'll lock that in. That'll be another. I'll lock that in on the hot take board. That won't ever happen again. Okay. But that's going to do it for today's episode. My thanks to Chris for joining me. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like what you're hearing, follow us on socials. We are everywhere at Coast to Coast NBA. And most importantly, remember to take every shot and love every moment.
Peace out.